All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a very, very exciting episode. We have an amazing speaker today, Adiel Gorel. He is an incredibly experienced real estate investor. Him and the investors who have worked with him have bought probably 10,000 homes across America over the last 30, 40 years. I'll let him give you more details about himself, but he has a very specific method for investing, which he calls remote control real estate investing, and very specific reasons for why you would invest in this particular way and why a house like this could be part of your investment portfolio, or perhaps 10 or who knows how many, right? So I'm going to turn it over to him and let him explain his strategy and how potentially you might be able to get started if this is something you're ready to do. Don't forget, though, that we're going to be doing more about the structuring, which is where you might put different types of investments, kind of into what pocket. So first of all, we want to do a few of those series before you run out and buy something, just to make sure you know where you want to put it. And I don't mean the location of the house. I mean the location of the investment in your portfolio. So if you haven't seen the video that we did with Claudia about your beginning to look at the overview of wealth management map and planning, please go and watch that. Right now, I'm excited to give you Adiel Gorel.
Well, as I said,
your name right.
It's good evening right here in California. And since California is on the West Coast, I assume it's good evening for everyone, or maybe good night for some. So good evening, everyone. My name is Adiel Gorel. I'm the CEO of a company by the name of ICG, stands for International Capital Group. And before we started, Asim said, maybe I can tell you a little bit about myself. I certainly will, because the way that I rolled, this is how it started. So by way of a background, I was born into a family of real estate developers. As a little boy, I cared nothing about all of that. I just wanted to play and have fun and eat as much sugar as I possibly can, because I was a little boy. But still, couldn't help avoid the conversation around the dinner table. And even as a little boy, I got two main complaints that my family always brought up at dinner. Each of this complaint was accompanied by the following hand motion. So it went like this. Why didn't we buy these homes 10 years ago? My God, it could have been so. Oh, that's one. The other one was, why did we sell these homes 10 years ago? We could have, we should have, we would have. Okay. So as a little boy, I got the notion that owning homes and not selling them so quickly is not a bad thing to do. Plus, another observation I made as a little boy, seems like all the friends that we had, is there enough light on me? Because there's another light source here. Is that okay, Faith? The light. Oh, you're muted. I'm gonna leave it like it is.
You're fine. If you want to, if you have more lights and you want to.
Let me just experiment with it and see. You tell me. You be the judge here.
All
Check
right.
it out. Oh no, actually, never mind. Never mind. So I also made an observation. The people whom we knew, our friends who owned houses, were rich. That's a little boy's observation. So much for the little boy. I came to the US, to Silicon Valley, to finish up my graduate studies. And I was your classic definition of a poor student. My family didn't help me. They didn't believe that was a good thing to do. Luckily, I had a scholarship. I went to Stanford. I taught at Stanford. And then, by the way, I studied electrical engineering, nothing to do with business, real estate, or anything like this. But I still think like an engineer, logically. So I did some research at Stanford, and then I got my first real job in Silicon Valley at Hewlett-Packard Labs, which is actually very close to Stanford. So I could still do my research at Stanford and also at HP Labs. Well, When I started working at HP Labs, I was getting a very good salary because in Silicon Valley, they pay you well. So that was one thing I noticed. Hey, I'm getting paid very well. The second thing I noticed, I was a very young guy. I looked at my colleagues who look more like I look right now. Yeah, they were older. And I said, well, they've been working here for 20 years, maybe for 30 years. They've been getting this amazing salary. What do they look like financially? The answer was not much. Typically, they own their own home, a couple of cars, and a 401k. That was it. I said, no way am I working in Silicon Valley for decades to look like this. I'm going to take my salary. I'm going to use my credit to build something very powerful. So when I'm that age, like maybe now, I'll be in a completely different strata. So because of my background in my home, I started buying simple stuff, single family rental homes right there in Silicon Valley. I was living in Palo Alto, right next to Stanford. So I bought a home. I think the first one I ever bought was in Sunnyvale. Then I bought one in San Jose. Very quickly, I realized that the numbers in Silicon Valley were not good numbers, meaning the rent was very low relative to the price. By the way, that is even true today in 2020. People will say, my God, what are you talking about? The rents in the Bay Area are enormous, meaning somebody in San Francisco is paying, my God, $5,000 a month, but he's paying, or she, $5,000 a month for a property that costs $2.5 million. That's very low rent for the price, yeah, for the price. Back in the 1980s, where now the numbers were a little different. Please don't laugh when I tell you that I was renting a home as a student at Stanford, a small home, a single family home in Palo Alto for $700 a month, and I could have bought it for $150, $150,000 rather. Those are not friendly numbers. Those are not good numbers, except in the 1980s, there was an unwritten rule in the world of real estate, and that was only buy within 30 minutes drive of where you live. And everybody was following the rule and not even questioning it. And I told myself, I don't just want to buy one or two homes. I want to do it on a consistent basis. And if I do, Silicon Valley, where I happen to be living, in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, not going to work. So I broke the rule. I did some research, and granted, in the 1980s, we didn't have the web. We did not. There was no web. Google didn't exist because Sergey Brin and Larry Page were toddlers. Did not exist. And yet, I did have a little bit at Stanford by way of the ARPANET. You know, the ARPANET was our so-called web. It wasn't really a web. With a little research, I very much saw that if I hop on a plane and I go for an hour and a half, I would reach a smallish city called Las Vegas. At the time, Las Vegas was about 450,000 people strong. And people were saying crazy stuff like Las Vegas is going to reach 1 million people by the year 2000. And what? I went to Vegas and I found homes that cost 4 times less than the homes in Silicon Valley, but they rented for a little more than half the rent of Silicon Valley. Those were numbers that were incredible. So I started flying to Vegas every weekend. It took me a few months to get my bearings, but in a few months I had a broker who really understood what I was trying to do and didn't just dismiss me, you know, because I was so young. And then most importantly, a property manager. I was living in California, in Palo Alto. The properties were in Vegas. The most important thing, I need a property manager to rent them and handle it. And if the faucet leaks, they go, not me. That was critical. And then I started buying homes. I've always been aggressive. So in the first year, I bought 22 homes in Vegas. It's not as impressive as it may sound, because the average home that I bought in Vegas during those days cost about, don't laugh please, $38,000. That's for the home. And Fannie Mae allowed me to put as little as 10% down with PMI, sometimes even 5%. I always put the minimum down. I was a very young guy. I wanted to preserve my cash and I wanted to buy as much as I could. So 22 homes. During the year I was doing it, my friends in Silicon Valley were ribbing me and making fun of me to no end. What are you doing? You're breaking the law. You're not the law, the rule. You're buying out of state. What are you, crazy? At the end of a year, you can't help it. They're logical engineers like me. They saw what I was doing and they started saying, oh, you know what? Makes so much sense. I want in. I said, what do you mean? Just go and do it. You don't need anything from me. They said, no. You're in Vegas. You already have a good relationship with the managers because you bought 22 homes and you know the realtors. Why don't you lead us? So I started leading a group of maybe 20 engineers. And over a period of about 3.5 years, we bought 250 homes in Vegas, not as a group. She bought 3 homes, she bought 4 homes, he bought 2 homes, I bought another one. Together, we bought about 250 homes. And then, of course, I discovered the trivial bit of knowledge, which is obvious. The service providers, the managers, the brokers, treated everybody with the same respect as if they owned 250 homes. One of the engineers was a very scaredy cat type guy from Sweden. He bought only 1 home. Yet, the service providers, the managers, the brokers knew if he was not happy, he would tell me, and then I would not be happy, and they could lose 250 homes, not just 1, especially since every manager in town was calling me all the time. Move to me, I'm cheaper, I'm better, because everybody wanted 250 homes. It's a lot of business. So it's nice to be a large client. About 1987, Las Vegas prices started going up. We stopped buying. We kept everything we had bought, and I moved the entire operation to Portland, Oregon. Portland and the state of Oregon have incredibly high property tax, really high. And yet, the numbers in Portland back in the day were so cheap, it worked very well. Building an infrastructure of brokers and managers in Portland was much easier than in Vegas. Why? Because when the super young guy came to property management firms after doing research and said, we're going to buy lots of homes, they said, yeah, sure, get away from me, you're just wasting my time. All I needed to say was, would you like to get on the phone with our Vegas managers? When they got off the phone from the Vegas manager, they would usually do things that look a lot like this, and they would want to work with us a lot. So it's much easier to build an infrastructure in a new market when you already have the track record in another market or more. We bought in Vegas, we bought in Portland, and then came the boom. What boom? What boom? Okay, you guys probably remember, because you're young and beautiful, remember the boom that we had before the big recession. The boom from 2004 to 2006, where many states like California, Nevada, and Arizona almost doubled in value between 2004 and 2006. That was a boom. When was the previous boom? From the end of 1988 through the year of 1989, which also was followed by a recession, 1990, 91, 92, somewhat 93. So when the boom started, prices in Portland went up, and we stopped buying in Portland. And in 1989, I moved the entire thing to Phoenix. Now, by that time, some things happened. Word got around about the crazy guy from Silicon Valley who was buying out of state. Everybody was very curious, and I started getting invitation to speak to investment groups and clubs, a little bit like I'm doing right now. So I spoke, and in one of the first lectures I gave, it was pretty big, 160 people in San Francisco. Unbeknownst to me, was a reporter for a newspaper called the San Francisco Examiner. Now, back in the day, the San Francisco Examiner used to put the Sunday paper together with another paper called the San Francisco Chronicle. So in the Sunday paper, there was a giant article about me. The whole thing took off, went crazy. People, those engineers that bought with me, had families in many countries. They started being interested. finally I was having so much fun and I felt like I was changing their future. I said, even though I put so much into my tech career, I dropped my tech career completely. It's a little scary to give up a big salary. Formed our company, ICG, and for about 35 years, we've been doing very much the same thing. Going to places, forming an infrastructure, and then buying what places, which places. So I've been a student of the demographics in the US for decades. And if you study even the census, you clearly see that the demographic wave in this country is going very strongly into what I call the Sun Belt states. The Sun Belt states is where the demographic growth is the highest. There are many reasons for it. By the way, I wrote 3 articles for Investment Magazine in the last couple of years. One of them is where to buy. Anybody who wants it, and I think I sent them to you, Faith. Faith can share them with you, or
Yes,
I can share them with you.
I posted one of the articles, I think, in the group, and I think I posted a couple of the articles that you sent me in the group.
Sure,
so
but if you
want to just kind of skim the PDF content in there, you can go read those as well.
Sure. So Sun Belt states, there are many reasons. Number one, it so happens they're very pro-business, unlike the state of California, where I live. They're pro-landlord, unlike the state of California, where I live. The Sun Belt states also are destination for the large group known as, I know it's become a word that you don't like as much, baby boomers. And the baby boomers, 77 million people, started retiring quite a few years back now, but there's still another 17, 18 years ago. A giant group of people, retired people usually seek the warmer climes. They've had it with running in Chicago in 30 below. Retired people want to go to places where it's affordable. There's a lot to say about that, and the article says it. So Sun Belt state, criteria number 1, pretty simple. Criteria number 2 is very simple, self-explanatory even, large metropolitan areas. Job diversity, industry diversity. If in a small town, the only factory goes out of business, it's a problem. In a large metropolitan areas, not a problem. So large metropolitan areas in the Sun Belt states. So 2 large metropolitan areas in the Sun Belt states where we bought thousands of homes. I forgot to tell you that in Phoenix, over 21 years, my investors, me, friends, everyone, we bought more than 3,000 homes just in Phoenix, in the Phoenix metropolitan area. That's about 14 cities. Sun Belt states, large metropolitan areas, where the numbers work right now. So this is May of 2020. Vegas and Phoenix don't work. What do I mean? From 2012, Phoenix went up home price wise by 160%. At the same time, rents went up by less than 20%. The situation became that it's too expensive, the cash flow doesn't work. Vegas, very similar. Now, there is an optical illusion. When you live in San Francisco and a very meager home goes for $1 million, the homes in Phoenix, whoa, it's only 300,000. Yeah, it's so cheap. Nope. You look at the ratio between rent and price. And you also consider property taxes, because other cities where we bought thousands of homes in our history, such as Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio and Houston, do not work now. So people say, what are you talking about? Austin, I want to go to Austin. It's amazing. Apple is starting, there's so much high tech, so much tech, so much tech. That's why you want to buy in Austin. Okay. I would like to suggest then, if that's your criteria, another place that has even more tech. More tech? Well, let's go buy there. That place is called San Francisco. So what if we have tech? What are the numbers like? So the homes in Austin, I own a lot of homes in Texas, in Austin, in all these markets that I mentioned. I lead by example. I own a ton of, I still own more homes than all of my investors. Although I have a couple of hotshots in Silicon Valley trying to beat me, and maybe they will one day. It's okay. But the prices in Austin, again, to buy a new home, we'll talk about that in a second, would be $280,000. And it will rent for maybe $1,900 a month. You can say, that doesn't sound so bad. Forgetting one thing, in Texas, the property tax is 3 times higher than in Nevada, Faith, or in California. The property taxes are so enormous that if the home rents for $2,000, it's the equivalent of it renting for $1,500. And now the cash flow is horrible. So my savvy investors are selling in Vegas, in Phoenix, in Dallas, in Austin, in Nashville, and are doing 1031 tax deferred exchanges into the markets that do work. And I'll talk about the markets that do work in a second. Because there is one thing that I say on the TV show, they put you on a studio surrounded by crowd. You know how they do this thing. So I tell them the following thing, which I'm also going to tell you.
Yes, and so I want to make a point about what he was just saying, which was just because Texas doesn't have income tax, they have to make their taxes somewhere, so they make it on their property tax.
Well,
right?
Nevada doesn't have income tax. They make it on the gaming, but you're right.
Yeah.
So there needs to be an outlet.
State has their way of making money, which is why you want to understand that market before you go into it. That's why having people who really know the market ahead of time, know the tax structure and everything is very important.
So now, before we talk about what markets actually work in May of 2020, I want to talk about one of the biggest gifts that exists in the financial universe. And most people here don't see it. So here's what I say on the show. I tell the crowd, those of you with a particularly keen sense of hearing may have detected the fact that I speak with an accent. Yeah. So everybody laughs, right? I do speak with an accent. When you speak with an accent, it means you weren't born here. And you were old enough when you came here to retain your accent. You weren't a little child. That means you have a perspective of somebody who comes from another country. And you see stuff that happens here that you guys might be looking at. And it's obvious because you were born into it. It's nothing new. If I tell you the sky is blue, you say, so? It's, oh yeah, I know that. It's not new. That amazing thing that foreigners
if you're in China, that's news.
Right.
The sky is not blue in China anymore.
Or in Glasgow, Scotland, not true. And so that thing that foreigners see so clearly is something you all know very well. It's the 30-year fixed rate loan. What? What did you just say? There's nothing here. That's why I'm listening to you on a Zoom. Yeah, guys, it's very, very strong. When I speak in Europe, the conversation kind of looks like this. I tell them, my American investors can get a loan that is a 30 years fixed loan, meaning neither the monthly payment nor the mortgage balance ever keep up with inflation. So the monthly payment, maybe 16 years down the road, is just dinner for two, right? Because the Europeans go crazy. They say, you must be wrong or you're extremely stupid. I can't believe I drove 100 kilometers to hear you speak. This is completely false. Nobody will lend you money where it will never keep up with inflation. That's impossible. We know you have inflation in the US. We know that 30 years ago, you went to the movies in New York City for $2. Now it's $14 when you can go, that is. We know that 30 years ago, you bought a postage stamp for 4 cents. Now it's 50-something cents. You have inflation all the time. You want to tell us that everything in the US economy, everything goes up in value all the time because the dollar buys less and less because of inflation, except for one thing, your mortgage? That is impossible. Why would the bank ever give you such a gift? Because you're not going to have to wait for 30 years. You look at your mortgage after 14 years, you start laughing. It has 16 years left, but it looks like a joke relative to the value of the home.
So is it true that in Europe at these places, they will actually increase the mortgage based on inflation?
Not just in Europe, everywhere in the world. So then they give me an example even. You just, yeah, it's exactly. They say, okay, let me tell you how it goes in our country. In our country, you get a loan for 500,000 and your monthly payment are 2,000. And you pay 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 like clockwork, let's say for 12 years. And after 12 years, now your monthly payment are 3,700 and your loan balance, which you keep paying in principal, is now 800,000. Kept up with inflation, changes all the time. Their mind is blown by what I tell them and they think it can't be. They say, if this were to be true, it would be the biggest gift in the world, but it's not true, so it isn't. You're just dumb. That's the gist of my conversation with them. So then I say, you know, guys, I see you all have these nice phones. How about you do a Google search? We know that Sergey Brin is not in kindergarten anymore. You can do a Google search. After a minute, I get what I call the sheepish face. Oh, they really have it. The next question is always the same. If the Americans can get this unbelievable gift, why don't they all run out every day to get as many of them as they can? My answer is also always the same. I don't know, but I did as much as I could until I couldn't anymore because they wouldn't give them to me because I own too much. This is a very important point. I was connected to Warren Buffett in 2012. Warren Buffett is a very, very wealthy and successful guy. And he was talking to me about buying homes. That's why people connected us. In 2012, he thought it was a good thing to do. He's a stock investor. But in 2012, he said on MSNBC that buying homes would be very clever. Somebody put us together. We talked. Even the great Warren Buffett never thought about it. Why? Because he doesn't speak with an accent. He's brilliant. And in a nanosecond, he got what I was saying. And he said to me, I'm never putting down more than 20%. Do you think Warren Buffett can afford to put down more than 20%? Of course, but he's a smart man. They give you a gift, you take the gift. This gift is a life changer. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. They may be some I said on the show, I'm not sure. Two of them. I have a friend who lives here in the Bay Area. He's a doctor, a successful doctor. This year he turned 60. He was buying homes with us in Phoenix mostly in the beginning of the 2000s. He bought one home to see what it's like. He bought another one. One of his concerns was, I'm really busy. I don't have time. He didn't have to do hardly anything because they were property manager. It was a remote control investment. Bought another one, bought another one. Back in the day, he was buying them for maybe 130, 140. Fannie Mae back in the day let him put only 10% down, which he did with PMI. And so he ended up buying 19 homes. 2 years ago, he calls me up. We're friends. He says, okay, here's what my typical home in Phoenix looks like. It's worth about $310,000 now. And the loan still has 14 years left. And the balance of the loan is $47,000. You see what inflation does to a fixed rate loan? The balance of the loan on that house is about 15% of the value. The loan is as good as gone, even though it's only halfway through the 30 years. He said, all my 19 homes look like this. I said, what do you care? You're a doctor, you earn well, just let them sit there, let inflation erode the loans even more. He said, no, that's not what I'm going to do. He sold 3 homes, paid his, the capital gains, and with what remained, he paid off all the 16 little tiny loans. Now he says to me, I know I'm only 58. I know I'm a doctor and all of that. 16 free and clear homes in Phoenix, I don't have to work anymore. You know what? I'm not working anymore. It's all your fault. Hasn't been working for 2 years because he's my friend. It gets to be very tiring because I like to work, but he calls me, oh, you want to? No, I'm working. I have a Zoom. I'm talking to Faith, stuff like this. But that's one example. Another example, I got an email about a year ago from one of my investors. This guy, very different, started investing at the age of 60. He says to me, I'm 81 years old now. Well, which means this year he's 82. When I started investing with you at age 60, I never thought I could retire. I was a high school teacher. Don't touch your face. I was a high school teacher and I was making so little, didn't know what I was going to do. With the 6 homes I bought with you guys, I've retired about 7 years ago. I live close to the beach. Thank you. You changed my life. Then there are so many people where even one home like this, one of these homes in the future when the loan is hardly there is another $10,000 a month. So I look at it in net worth of probably $250,000. That's typical. Things go up and down. I'm talking in typical terms. So then you have to ask yourself, how many building blocks do you want in the future? Do you want one such building block? You want 2, 19, 16, 11, or 150 like I do? It doesn't matter. It's a building block. I tell people they can send their kids to college using these homes. So I have a lot of young people, Silicon Valley or not, they buy 3 homes. They say each one of these homes is earmarked for one of my kids. And they pay the loan off even faster sometimes. Instead of in 30 years, they pay another $100 a month and they pay it off in 17 years or in 16 years. Then they sell the home, it pays for the college. And as I like to say, want to send your kid to Harvard with a Porsche? Buy 2 homes. Sends your kids to college and then retirement. Each one of those homes in the future means $10,000 per year. How many $10,000s a year do you need to retire? Some people say, I don't need much. $50,000 a year extra on top of whatever else I have would be good. Okay, buy 5 homes. Some people say, no, I need 200,000. Who cares? It's a building block. Let me answer a question that you didn't ask. Go ahead, Faith.
There is a question we have, I feel like, because can you explain to us the numbers?
Yeah, I'm getting
the type of house, but also I feel like
Absolutely.
a lot of people,
but
I felt like, maybe I missed the boom. It's too late.
No.
They're too expensive now, things like that.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you and I are in lockstep. It's good. Okay, so I talked about the 30-year fixed rate loan. That's important. And those examples I gave is what this loan, how powerful it is and how it can change your future. Now let's talk about which markets work. And that's where the numbers are going to come out. So we said Vegas, no. Phoenix, no. Dallas, no. Austin, what's a yes? Well, we begin with Oklahoma City. The Oklahoma City market, if you look at the map, is relatively close to Dallas. The prices are a lot lower than Dallas. The rents are only a bit lower than Dallas. The property tax is 250% lower than Dallas. The unemployment right before the COVID was the lowest of all big cities in the US at 2.6% before COVID. By the way, they're doing very well with COVID. I'll talk about that in a second. We are buying brand new homes in Oklahoma City, anywhere from $150,000 to about $190,000. That's about the range. Good homes in good areas. Why do I say that? When I began, I was like all inexperienced investors, a cash flow cowboy. I saw that the lousy homes, the old homes in the lousy part of town, on paper seem like they generate a better cash flow than the nice home in the good area. So I bought lousy homes. I learned as the years went by that the words location, location, location didn't come out of nowhere. You want to buy good homes in good areas. The lousy home, the old home, the decrepit home that you will fix in a bad area may look better cash flow wise on paper, but life doesn't happen on paper. After the second drug dealer kills the third smuggler, it doesn't look so good anymore. And most people come crying and regret that they do it. So buy good homes in good areas. Now, another wrinkle on this, buy brand new homes. In my opinion, brand new homes have only benefits, not any drawback whatsoever. One benefit is the age of the air conditioner is brand new. The age of the roof is, I don't want to be boring, but brand new. Everything is brand new. Everything is under builder's warranty and manufacturer's warranty. Excellent start to your life. The floor plan is the most modern. The tenants like it. The house has better efficiency of energy. The tenants love it. During the COVID period, a property manager in Oklahoma City, as an example, because I already mentioned it, is reporting the following. Number one, in April, the rent collections were as usual. In May, as usual, except one phenomenon he's seen. Because of COVID-19, many tenants who live in apartment complexes feel unsafe because they share the elevator, they share the stairwell, maybe they share the laundry room, maybe even they share the vents. So if the tenant in unit 6B is sick, no good for all the other tenants. They're leaving apartment and seeking to rent what? Single family homes. And is a new home even more attractive because it's safer because no one lived there? Absolutely. So
wow, that's so interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's a great tip.
in a funny way, we are seeing better rents during COVID than not. I was interviewed on Fox Business on the 5th of May by Maria Bartiromo. In fact, you can see it on our website. Anyway, she was talking about a movement that was forming in Los Angeles and New York of let's not pay rent because of the crisis. She asked me what I thought about it. And I said, well, yeah, for the expensive parts of the country, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, the unemployment benefit are not going to cover the rent. That could be a problem. But for most of the country, certainly where we buy, middle of that, anybody can pay the rent. And I'll tell you why. I said to her, I can tell you why. She said, why? I said, here's why. In any one of these places, the person is either fully employed as before, in which case they can pay rent, or only partially employed because of the COVID-19, in which case they're collecting unemployment, or not employed at all, in which case they are collecting unemployment. Now, the federal government has boosted the usual unemployment payments by $600 a week. A month has a little more than 4 weeks. That's $2,500 a month extra. In the middle of the country, most people who are unemployed earn as much or more from unemployment as they did when they were working. And to wit, I told her on TV, many businesses are trying to reopen. They call up the employees. Employee says, we don't want to come back. We make more money not working than if we work. And she said, oh, what an interesting point. I'm going to share it with the Secretary of Labor who's coming on the show. Anyway, rent. People can pay rent as long as the unemployment benefits are going. The new package in Congress, the $3 trillion package that they are fighting over, is planning to extend the unemployment benefits till the end of January. And people are already opening up. So hopefully by then it's not even going to be an issue. But COVID-19, in a weird way, actually helped the rentals in the Oklahoma City market. Now, there's an article in the San Francisco Chronicle. I'm working on our bi-monthly newsletter. So I'm collecting some data. This is an article from the San Francisco Chronicle from a few days ago. May rents in San Francisco at 97% collections of rents. That's the most expensive market in the country. Bodes well for all the other markets. Anyway, so I talked about Oklahoma City, brand new home. By the way, there are more benefits to brand new homes. When you buy a brand new home, you buy it from a developer, from a builder. It's much easier to negotiate with a builder, especially when you are a large group like we are. The builder is not stupid. He says, these guys can buy 100 homes from me. Okay, I'm going to throw in the appliance package. I'm going to throw in, the covered patio. I'm going to he's throwing in. It's easy for them to throw stuff in because they have all the workforce in the field and they have all of the materials in the field. Other markets, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, rents are very high relative to the price. They're doing fine. Central Florida, Orlando and Tampa, where we bought thousands of homes over the years, are too expensive. But east of Orlando, north of Orlando, between Orlando and Tampa, there are places. What are the prices there? Between 200 and 225. Parts of the market in Atlanta work, 200 to 230. Raleigh-Durham, the Research Triangle, the most expensive market we are still buying in, 200 to 250 or so. So you see the general gist of it. Now, Fannie Mae allows you to get a loan as an investor, not a homeowner, investor, with as little as 15% down with private mortgage insurance or PMI. Some people say, no, I'd rather not pay private mortgage insurance, then it's 20% down. So let's do a quick calculation. If it's 20% down you want to put, and you're buying a home in Oklahoma City for $170,000, yeah, middle of the spectrum. 20% of 170,000, that's 34,000 plus closing costs and loan costs, about 40,000. This is what you need to get started. If you're like me and you always want to put the minimum down, you can buy a home in Oklahoma City for 150,000, brand new in a good area, and you put only 15% down with PMI. 15% down of $150,000 is $22,500, plus loan costs and closing costs, 29,000 or so. 30,000, less than 30,000. So just to, you know what you can get started. We have property management firms, infrastructure in all these markets that serve me. In some of the markets, we've bought 2,000 homes. In Oklahoma City, we bought something like 1,600 homes over 16 years. Do they want to please us? Absolutely. Do they want? And I say it on TV too. I will hold your hand. I've been doing it for 30 plus years. Why will I hold your hand? Let me ask a question that you didn't ask because you're too polite. If your friend retired on the strengths of the homes he bought and you have 10 times as many homes and you've been buying for 35 years, why aren't you a yacht in the Caribbean right now? Why are you talking to us? Yeah, well, it's a good question. I happen to be one of these people who doesn't consider a life that's 100% vacation an interesting life. I like vacation when you work and then you don't work. Vacation, then it's a vacation. But only vacation, might as well sit in your jammies in front of, that's not the life I seek. I feel like I'm changing every one of your lives, every one of your futures. I'm very motivated. I'm doing more than ever. I go on TV, I have a TV show, I have another one, love it. But I don't have to work. It's been about 23, 24 years, don't have to work. I can pack it in anytime I want. I'm not packing anything in, it's okay. So that's one question that people ask me.
I do have to say, you work more than ever. You're busy.
I work more than ever. I love what I do. But again, I don't consider it work. Being here on the Zoom with you, where I talk about what I really am passionate about that can change your futures, this is not work. This is great fun. For me. Another question that people ask me is, okay, wait a second. You have an office and you have employees. How do you make your money? Okay, very simple. Any one of you here on the call lives somewhere. Is that a fair statement? Each and every one of you lives somewhere. I think it's a fairly safe.
So. Let's hope so. We don't have anybody living under the bridge at this point.
Well, that's somewhere also. So let's suppose you want to buy a home in the place where you live, the market where you live. Typically, you will get a realtor, somebody recommended a realtor, she or he will show you homes, and then you'll make an offer, you'll buy, you'll get your loan, you'll close. Now the home is yours. Congratulations. The realtor then gets paid. By whom? By you? Nope. The buyer doesn't pay the realtor. The seller pays the realtor. So the realtor pays by the seller. Let's use Oklahoma City as an example. So you just bought your first home in Oklahoma City. You bought it for $150,000. I held your hand, connected you with the lenders. The team in Oklahoma City is super professional. Everything went great. Congratulations, you own your home. Now the broker, part of our team in Oklahoma City, gets paid a commission by the seller. They split it with us. Does it sound like very little? Yep. On $150,000 home, the commission is what? Maybe $9,000 total. And split it with us, not very much money. It's okay. Volume. We bought more than 10,000 homes. And the property managers are so happy with the huge amount of business that we give them, including mine and yours. We lower their management fees from the marketplace, but they also know my MO is to help everybody I know. I'll be available to every one of you on a phone call anytime you want. What do you have to do? Send us an email, info.
And just so you guys know, when I did a call with Adiel before we went on this, I specifically asked him, talk about how you get paid, because I want people to understand what the structure is so that people aren't wondering like, oh, okay, great. Well, I use your service, you get some affiliate fee, or if you're going to help me, do I need to pay you a fee, or all kinds of stuff like this. I wanted it to be very, very upfront, so that people can feel comfortable with the transparency of that. And like Adiel is saying, this is part of his passion, right? When you're doing this type of stuff in volume, he's figured out a structure for how to get paid where it doesn't cut into the value of what you're getting. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so the brokers get paid, they split it with us, you pay zero for all the support. Everybody there in all these markets know that me and my staff, hover over them like a big brother. They know we are watching you guys. I dedicate more than half my time to phone calls. If you want to talk to me one-on-one with what you're specific, send us an email, info@icgre.com. Ask to talk to me. Our staff will call you back, set up a time for us to talk. I spend more than half my time, love those phone calls, guide you, and all of that stuff. You don't pay anything. Another very minute way in which we get paid, we lower the management fees because of the volume that we give the managers, but the managers know, we have a reputation by now, that my staff and I help our investors all the time, a lot. So the managers know we save them a lot. They pay us very little, literally a couple of bucks a month per home. Sounds like nothing until you multiply it by 10,000, and then from time to time you can buy a sandwich if you're hungry with that. So we are fine. That's enough to pay my staff, to pay our organization. We still have some left over. You don't pay a penny. And very important, you buy a home at the price of the market after we negotiate with the builder to throw in and this and throw in this. That's important. Why is it important? Because when I go to other countries, many such companies come to me and say, no, you're stupid. We buy old homes, we fix them up. They don't know how much we bought them for. We sell them for a huge gain, much more money for us. Fine. But for you, buying brand new homes is better. And some people will say a brand new home only gives you an advantage for 5 years. Untrue. As a person who's owned 400 homes personally, now I'm left with about 150, just a meager amount. I can tell you from experience that a new home, I recently replaced an air conditioner in Vegas, in one of my homes in Vegas, after 16 years. 16 years it went through. I'm not saying all the air conditioners carry on for things, but roofs can last depending on the type of roof. It's not true that it's only for 5 years. Starting with a brand new home is an excellent thing to do and only benefits. Now, what kind of loans can you get? You can get the 30-year fixed rate loan. You can get a 15-year loan, but let me ask you this. Can you pay off a 30-year loan in 15 years if you wanted? Yes, you pay a little extra principal. Can you pay off a 15-year loan in 30 years if you wanted? No, you can't. Why be stuck with the higher payments when you can? So the 30-year loan already includes the 15-year loan. Some people like to pay it off in 15 or 14 or 10. I'll send you an article that talks about all of this. Fannie Mae allows you to have up to 10 such properties. If you're married, then each one of the spouses can qualify separately. Fannie Mae allows you to take the ownership to the home in both of your names, and yet only one of your names is on the loan. The 10 becomes 20. What happens after 20? Are people in Silicon Valley who are buying 50? There are loans, but they're not quite as good, but they're there. Now, let's talk about the COVID. Another thing in the Wall Street Journal here. I don't know if you
Can
can.
I make one quick point? Something that Adiel was talking about with regards to the property manager fee. And I think, you mean, we've seen sort of the basic kind of cost spectrum, which I would like to mention that, you know, like the cash flow and how that works out over time a little bit. We talked about it in our last call, but we can mention it here. But the property management fee in most places would be usually around between 10 to 15%.
It depends on the state. It depends on, in Florida, it tends to be between 10 and 15. In other states, it's less, but it varies.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about
But for Adiel, they negotiate, because they're doing it at volume, they can negotiate the property management fee lower than the typical management fee in that area.
Slightly less. Again, it's important for us to get a discount and for you to get a discount, but it's important that they still get paid well, because otherwise it's not a good idea. They need to do their job for you. So it's truly remote control. I own 150 homes. I can assure you, if I were maintaining or renting out my own homes, I wouldn't be on this Zoom with you at this moment. I'd be hunched over a toilet fixing it. But I don't touch my homes. I play with my kids. I go with my retired friend and have fun. I don't remote control. I have property managers do it. Do I have any bookkeeping to do? Very minor. Until I owned about 60 homes, I did it all myself, not even on QuickBooks. I was using Quicken, the primitivism of it. Quicken. Now I have a bookkeeper who deals with my company's bookkeeping, and she also does this for me. I don't even touch anything. But you can even hire a part-time bookkeeper if you own so many homes. That guy, the retired guy with the 19 homes, you talk about old school, my God, he didn't have an Excel even. He was doing it in a notebook. It takes about an hour a week. Worthwhile, will change your future. Every quarter, we have a big event near the San Francisco airport. Why? I call it our one-day expo. I bring in the market teams. They present on the stage. They show you their market, the numbers, you meet them. I bring experts, lawyers and CPAs, insurance people, credit people. And the last event we had was on Saturday, the 16th of May, 4 days ago, except it wasn't an in-person event because of the situation. I did it by Zoom, and then it wasn't an entire day. It was a 4-hour Zoom from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time. It was recorded. You're most welcome to join the one-day expo. You're gonna hear the presentations of all of these markets in detail. See the properties with numbers, the rent, the cash flow. It's gonna be fascinating. Plus, a lawyer talked about asset protection. A person talked about how to maintain very good credit through the crisis. And there was another expert. Of course, I took a zillion questions, Q&A. And I was showing you from the Wall Street Journal, the darling stocks of Wall Street right these days into COVID are companies who buy and rent single family homes. Like, Blackstone and Invitation Homes. Wall Street is voting single family rentals the best during the crisis. They're always the best. Even during the recession, all you need to do is do nothing, because during the recession, people were afraid to buy, but they still need a place to live. So the rental collections were the best. All you needed to do was sit back and wait. So people need to master the art of doing nothing. So you buy a single family home, new one, in a big metro area in the Sunbelt state, put a down payment, you get a 30-year fixed rate loan at the lowest rates in history, by the way. Now, lowest rates in history, and they will never change because it's fixed. Hello? So you buy it, and then two things start and they never stop. Number one, inflation constantly erodes the value of your payment and your principal balance, and you're not even paying the loan, the tenant is paying it. And as the years go by, the tenant is paying more and more and more, but the loan is always the same. It's sometimes when I talk about it, in my head, there's a voice that, you know what, this is too good, to be true, except it's completely true, So, and I have even old people starting with me. My record was 86. Recently it was broken. The mothers of one of my investors at 87 bought her first investment home. Why did she do that? First of all, she said we have a lot of longevity in the family. But second, she has 3 grandkids. In this crazy country, there is another gift that you get. When you die, your holdings, those go to your heirs on something that I want you to look up. It's called a step-up basis. That is another insane gift. I'm going to use a numerical example to show the point. Let's say you bought a home for $100,000. I'm making it quite net, all the numbers on it. You bought a home for $100,000. You held it, you held it, you held it, you held it, and you depreciated it all the time. So when you depreciate it, the basis for taxes goes down. So let's say you held it for so many years, you depreciate it to 0. And now it's worth $1 million. I'm just making up a story to show you the point. So if you are to sell it one day before you die, you're going to have to pay the capital gain tax on $1 million minus the basis, which is 0, on $1 million. Now, suppose you die, God forbid, it goes to your heirs, and they want to sell it one day after you die. Well, it goes to your heirs on a step-up basis. The basis steps up to the value of the property on the day you died. So your heirs get the property at the basis of $1 million. The day after you die, they sell it for $1 million. Let's say it's all net. They have to pay tax on $1 million minus $1 million, 0. That's why she started at 87. I have people starting at 20 something, 30 something, all, Silicon Valley crowd, but even 87. It is crazy. One of the reasons I sometimes think it's so crazy in this country for home investing is Congress is full of wealthy people. Wealthy people usually own real estate and many homes. Is it any wonder that it's so unbelievably good? Now, think about another thing. You are getting a fixed rate loan at the lowest rates in history because the Fed lowered the rates because of COVID-19. They'll stay like this forever. Guess what the government is doing? They printed more than $2 trillion with the first stimulus package. They injected $4 trillion liquidity into the financial markets. It's $6 trillion so far. They're fighting over a $3 trillion bill. By the time this whole thing is done, they will have printed 8 or 9 new trillion dollars. After the crisis, you're going to have 8 trillion extra dollars chasing the same amount of goods. Sorry, less goods. Some businesses will not be there. You know what they call that? They call it inflation. So here you are, you bought your home, you have the lowest rate in history, it's fixed forever, and then inflation rages on. And I've been through phases of inflation. I've seen loan interest rates at 14%, at 12%. I remember the incredibly happy day mortgage rates went down to single digits. The media was yelling. We all ran out and refinanced everything to 9.95. What a day that was. You can get loans now. I don't even want to talk. It's crazy stuff. So anyway, this is the whole thing. Faith, I don't know how much time we have, but I'd like to take a couple of questions.
Oh yeah, no, this is amazing. I do want to make one more point with something about what you said before and what we talked about was you said that when you first started investing, you were actually buying properties where you were actually paying a little bit every month to cover the rest of the expenses, like $100, $200 a month. But with the type of, because you knew that it was going to depreciate down and the inflation was going to raise the interest, and then you'd hit that break even point. But now for the type of investments that you do, that the type of houses, et cetera, you're making sure that the person maybe is, maybe getting a couple hundred a month or something.
200 a month. With these rates, when you put 20% down, as little as that, it'll be a few $100 a month positive cash flow. Why? Because the interest rates are so super low. That's just you're lucky because you're doing it at a time when the rates are the lowest in history. I started when the rates were 14%.
So there's something I want you guys to think about, because there was a reason I told Adiel, I actually had looked into property and real estate because I'd heard it was a good investment back when I was working for Skadden, and I was living in LA, and then I was living in Hong Kong. But the prices were just insane. Like, I'd have to have $100,000 just to put down a down payment on a house. And I looked at the cash flow numbers; they weren't making sense. And then when I was looking at it as sort of a cash flow basis, I was like, well, $200 a month, how many houses am I going to have to own for that to change my life or to make it worthwhile? But that was because I didn't understand the full picture of what we've laid out here, which is a totally different picture. So basically what you do is you're buying this house, you buy it new so that it's a beautiful property and continues to, have value and rent over time. And then at the same time, the mortgage balance is going down, inflation is increasing the rent payments. And then by the time, 15 years from now or whatever, when you're ready to say sayonara, you can pay off the balance of it. And then it's creating an income that you can actually live on if you have multiple of these. So this is very powerful.
Yeah.
There's great structuring benefits, which we'll talk about in some of the other ones. So what Adiel was talking about with the depreciation. So if you own a house, you can actually take that depreciation against your income. So
depending on how much you make, there's some limitations. You never lose the depreciation, but it may carry forward if you make too much money that year. That's a detail we're not going to go into because we could easily do this for 5 hours.
Right. So but that's some details that we will look at, and we will look at some numbers and structuring and tables. I do want to talk about that. So not on this call where we have Adiel and we don't want to keep him too long.
I can talk about it. I don't care. I'll spit it out right now. It's not complicated.
So, but if you guys have any questions you want to ask him.
But wait, I just want to say one thing, Faith, with your permission. This is a life changer, but it's not a get rich quick. It doesn't change your life in 1 year. It's not a flip. It will completely transform your life in 12, 14, 15, 16 years, completely. So then you can retire. You can do anything you want. In the meantime, so, I gave Faith the following, example. This is a true story. I have 2 investors from Silicon Valley, husband and wife. He is a very high level manager at Google. He makes something like $800,000 a year. She is a manager at Facebook, makes $350,000 a year. They're in their 40s. And they told me at first, wait a second, when we put 20% down, we only have $200 a month cash flow. But if we buy this home, we'll get $250. I said, excuse me? How much do you guys make a year? Oh, $1.1 million? And the $50 is what's going to make you? When I look at you guys, right now, I'm going to say something that is almost harsh, but I'm not saying it from meanness or harshness. I don't care about you right now. I care about you in the future, in 10 years, 12 years. Right now, I'm assuming you work, you can buy food, you can buy gas. That's the cash flow now. It's your job, your work. These people make $1 million, $50 or $200 or $300 or $400 a month is not going to make much of a difference. But boy, when they got it, they realized they've already bought 30 homes and they're only getting started because, they make a lot of money, but it doesn't matter. Cash flow is not what's going to change your life in year 1, year 2, year 3. Yeah, cash flow is going to get better and better. You'll get tax benefits. But then in the future, you'll meet with me and you'll always say the same sentence. Everyone says it, even I say it. I should have bought more. Everyone always says this because it changes your life. All right. I'll take any questions if you guys have any.
Okay, so we have one question and it says, I own a property and I've had time when the home is not filled and I've also had damages from occupants. Can you address that?
Sure. I just got something from my kid and I just wanted to see it's not an emergency and it's not, but please excuse me, it's not being rude. It's my child. I need to see that it's okay. Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay. So the person said that they have maybe a property, and I think it's in kind of a more expensive area, and that that the issue is that sometimes the house isn't filled. Like there's
I see the question right here.
between renters, or there's some damages or repairs have to be made.
Question that's been asked through the history of time. What if my house doesn't rent? Yeah. What if my house doesn't rent for 74 years? Yeah. In theory, what really happens is, as a person who is looking at thousands of homes in every market, it goes by the vacancy rate in that market. Step number one, remember how I said brand new homes in good areas? That is so important, because then you rent it to good tenants, white collar people. I'm using Oklahoma City as an example. The vacancy rate in Oklahoma City, pre-COVID and during the COVID, 3%. 3%. So, I mean, statistically, your home is going to be rented 97% of the time. You want to be a little more careful, assume 95% of the time. I've been doing it for 30 plus years, hundreds of homes. I can tell you, I've been there. Did I have homes vacant? Of course. Did they rent? Of course. Let me tell you how you can think about it. Whoever asked this question, let's say David. I don't see David. Oh, David, here you are. So, David, you live in a certain place, right?
I live in upstate New York.
Upstate New York. What's the name of the town?
I'm in Manlius, but this home I'm talking about is in Syracuse.
No. Where do you live?
I have a place in Manlius, which is outside of Syracuse.
Okay. So I won't buy in Syracuse because it's not in the Sun Belt. It's not a big enough city, but let's say that I decided I want to buy in Syracuse. I have no connections in Syracuse, but I now know David lives in Syracuse, in University. You would become a valuable source for me to know. And I said, David, I don't know. I just think you're a great guy. I want to buy a home on the street on which you live. But I'm afraid it's not going to rent. So you know your street very well. You live there. You may say things to me. I'm not sure, but you may say, well, you know, I live here. I can tell you things rent within a month here. Maybe they do and maybe they don't. But you know the street. You know, and I don't know anything. I'm in San Francisco. I'm afraid of Syracuse. Maybe it's not going to rent. But you are not afraid. It's in the same way, going back to the example of Oklahoma City, the property manager in Oklahoma City not only lives there, but does renting all the time in that market. So if you, David, or me, Adiel, we say to him, what if my home in Oklahoma City doesn't rent? He would say, look, I manage 1,600 homes, and I can tell you it's 97% occupancy. One thing I recommend very strongly during regular times is visit the market one time. Visit. I make this recommendation even to the foreigners that have to cross an ocean to do that. For you, it's an easy visit. It's not far. Even one day, even if you're busy, go there, spend a day with the realtors, with the property managers, see the homes. When you come back, you'll have a much better feel. Is it going to make you an expert on this market? Of course not. We rely on the experts in the market. I rely on David Goldsmith to help me in the Syracuse area, if that's what you choose to do for a living and you have experience. But I mean, you will see, and you can say things like this. Well, if you own 100 homes, then statistics come into play and it's 97%. But I own one home, it's binary. It's either empty or full. Not so. Let's say you own only one home. Remember, I said this is a long-term investment. So you hold the home for 100 months. Oh, 100 data points, 97%, you can't escape statistics.
And we, the homes we have are pretty much rented and paid off as part of, for the years that we've had.
I already love it. Love it.
It's that the market, and hopping on a plane It's not an issue for me at all. That's a nothing. It's I wanted to know how you addressed on your end, because we have had tenants who have come in and, for example, brought in dogs where we didn't know. One of them ended up breeding in the house and ate. They let them go to the bathroom all over wooden floors, which seeped in, and they ate the stairs, the staircase, the edges of each of the stairs. And so we've had those type of challenges. Even when you do the best thing you can in the world to address it, getting people out is an issue.
Okay.
So,
Hold
It also
on.
depends on the
I have
market
to differ.
as to whether it's tenant friendly or landlord friendly.
There you go.
And part of it, which is what Adiel had talked about before, we didn't mention it in this one, is that when you're doing the numbers and you're doing the Excel spreadsheet, you want to bake into your numbers a
vacancy and repair. However, you live in the great state of New York, David. I live in the great state of California. They may be great states, but when it comes to being landlord friendly, they are the most horrendous states in the country. I don't invest in California or New York. Don't even touch them. What did I say? Sunbelt states. By the way, I forgot one criteria. I'm so sorry. Sunbelt states, large metropolitan areas where the numbers work. No, I did say, the number, I'm sorry. All of these markets, Vegas, Phoenix, Oklahoma, all the ones in Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, very business friendly, and as a consequence, landlord friendly. So we are buying brand new homes in good areas. Evictions are extremely rare. They can happen in theory, but if they have to happen a few weeks, if you have to evict in California, easily a year.
Yeah, we've never had to evict. We just got them out.
Yeah, but New York is a horrendous state for the landlord, as is California.
Yeah, no, that I do realize.
There was a time that I owned 24 homes in California. Now I only own 2. And one of them I live in. But I mean, these two states.
I hope you pay your rent.
These two states, yeah, I try the best I can. I do the best I can. But anyway, you're absolutely, this is a great point. So we have 2 people here with their pictures next to each other, that's me and David, and we represent the most atrocious states to own rental homes in. But all these Sunbelt states, evictions happen so fast and the tenants know it. So in many cases, if you have a tenant who doesn't even want to, they leave because they know they don't do it. Now, that's very rare when you buy nice new homes to start with. But thank you, that was good.
So the other thing that you had mentioned, which was very interesting to me, was that you had an investor, I guess, who did own in one of these more expensive states. And they realized that if they sold their property there, they could buy 3 homes in another state that is more investor friendly and build up from there. So that's another thing to think about if you're investing in somewhere that is difficult and is not friendly for landlords.
Faith, you make a great point. We see people in California, and I assume, David, that you may see it over in New York State. By the way, are you safe and everything is okay up, in Syracuse?
I have not left my home for 5 months, but for 9 days. So 5 months I've been I've not gone to the street in 5 months.
This is very unusual for David because usually he lives on a plane.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I've lived in Hong Kong for the past 10 years. I also lived in Europe. So I kind of got stuck here.
Wow. I have not left my home, hardly for 9 weeks.
Now, think 5 months, that's almost an entire half a year. I have not gone to the street. I went to London, Dubai, visited my father twice before he passed.
All right, well, I love the catching up, but I do want to be aware.
Yeah, there's a question here.
So we do have
just make the point before you ask. Faith said something that I see all the time. Somebody sells their home in Phoenix for $310. They do a 1031 tax deferred exchange and buy 3 homes in Oklahoma City and or one of the other market. I'm using the the Oklahoma City market just as an example. Or in California, people say, okay, I have home here, very little home, very decrepit. It's worth $1.1 million. That's the life in California, right? So I'm selling it, doing a 1031 exchange and buying 20 homes that are brand new in other places with brand new loans at the lowest rates in history. 20 loans they can get if them and their spouse work on it. Go ahead, Farida.
Okay, thank you so much. Very informative, and I actually don't know nothing about investment in real estate. I live in Nebraska, Omaha. So I would like to know your opinion about how about market in Nebraska or Lincoln, and is it worth to invest here?
Okay, so remember, actually, I have another one of the series of articles that I wrote, and the title is, should I buy my own home first, or should I rent where I live and invest? And of course, the answer is, it depends. If you live where I live, renting makes a lot more sense because you buy a home here, the kind that I would like, for $4 million, and then you can rent it for $6K a month. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's very low. But if you live in Nebraska, I suspect that if you're looking at buying your own home, that would be a very good first move. The rates are the lowest in history, and a homeowner's rate is even lower than an investor's rate. So buying your own home, absolutely. As far as making investments there are some drawbacks, but there's also a benefit. The drawbacks are, I already said, I want to buy in the Sun Belt states. You're not in the Sun Belt states. To me, that's over. The city of Omaha is probably big enough to squeeze in under my criteria. I don't know your economy because I don't look beyond the Sun Belt. So you will know that better than me. These are all drawbacks for me, but there's one benefit. You live there. And there's a level of comfort for the new investor to own right next to where you live. Be just careful. Don't become the landlady who has to fix everything and they call you. I used property managers even when I was in Silicon Valley and I bought homes in Silicon Valley. I don't want to be a property manager. That's not what I do well.
So we have another question here. That was a great question, Farida. And I think if you look at like the criteria he gives, he has very specific criteria, and there's a reason behind that. And if you're reading any Rich Dad, Poor Dad stuff, he always says, don't buy your own house, invest it in buy assets that will make you money. So it kind of depends on what your philosophy is, how you want to go with that. We have another question, which I feel like this is kind of answered, but how can you buy property remotely when most realtors want to meet in person, assuming you're just starting?
Okay, so the key word here is the word most. I recommend, as I said, during regular times where you can fly, to fly and visit and meet with them. I recommend during regular times to come and join us on our one-day expo and meet them and talk to them. Now you don't fly very much, or we don't fly, at all. Like I said, we had an expo just 4 days ago. I'll be happy to send you and/or Faith a link, and you can actually meet all the people by Zoom, see their market, hear their market. All you need to do is send us an email. Again, sorry for using the same exact market as an example, but let's say you want to buy, in Oklahoma City. You send me an email, I'll connect you to the team in Oklahoma City. And from that point on, they will have Zoom meetings with you. They'll show you the houses with video, all of that stuff. I will be supporting you, and you can buy your first home. You don't have to meet them physically. I would prefer, especially the first time. But right now, it's not so, but the rates are very low. I would say, let me hold your hand. Me personally, not one of my employees. Ask, this is a group, ask, and I'll walk you through it.
So what I want to respond to your question as well is that something that Adiel is saying there is very important. That is true about most realtors. And normally, if you're trying to buy in a market, you show up, you have to talk to 5 or 10 of them, you try to find one that's any good. Usually they're all crap, right? I mean, it's just a whole process. The gold here is that Adiel already has a group of realtors, etc., that are trained to operate this way. They are trained to work with investors who want to do this remotely. They're trained on Adiel's criteria of what the type of investments he's looking for, and the connections are all there. That's why this is incredibly unusual, I would say, because mostly you're going into a market and you're trying to figure it all out yourself, versus what we're talking about here with Adiel is he has a team of people that do this every day and that they can help walk you through it, and they're used to working with investors that live in these other markets.
Look, I'm an engineer by background. When I solve an engineering problem, I still think like that. I try to simplify. I have tried for decades to simplify this. I took it to the simplest place possible. New homes, new loans. There's an infrastructure team in the field that we've bought 1,000 homes with, or 15 or 1,600 homes in the market. So they're eager and motivated to have you be happy, because if you're not happy, I hear about it, all my staff, yes? And then it's as simple as can possibly be. We as human beings, we all share this trait. We love to complicate. We love to, no, it can't be, it's gotta be hard. But I believe in making it as simple as possible. I know it sounds, for those of you that have never ever bought a property, like a very giant and daunting thing. It's not. But I'm standing right here. I personally will guide you and hold your hand. Why will I do it? Again, I love doing it. If I change your future, that's a drug that you can't quit.
Thank you, Adiel. That's amazing. And, you know, Adiel is a friend of mine, and I'm so grateful that he came on to talk to all of us about this. And he really does have a heart for people, and he really does love this. This is his passion. So
one thing I recommend is Faith put the link to my PBS special, and it ran through the country for, you know, a couple of years. Watch the show. I swear I made it very entertaining. It's a high production, and you're going to learn a lot. And anyone who wants, you know, the articles, just, you know, or to talk to me, I'm there for you.
Yes, and so I'll make sure those resources are in our Financial Ninjas Facebook group, and any additional resources that I can get out of Adiel, I will make sure to post there as well. So you guys have access to them and you can dig into them. This is something that I'm very excited about. This I consider as a piece of this whole wealth map that we want to look at building. And I think it's a very critical, important piece, because what a lot of people are worried about with, like he was saying, all this printing of money is inflation. And a real estate property like this acts as a hedge against inflation. It's something you can use to help with taxes. There's a lot of different ways to utilize a property that can be very helpful in your overall planning. So,
by the way, I wrote a couple of books on it. You can get one of them on Amazon. The rest, I try to make it available only to the donors, you know, to PBS, but we'll put them on Amazon soon. But even the book that's on Amazon that I wrote, just look up my name, many people said it was a life changer. Very simple to read. I thought, anyway. Faith,
thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't say, and I told you that I'm very proud of what you have created. I know that this is only starting, but this woman, Faith, is a powerhouse and she gets things done. So many kudos to you for what you're building.
Thank you so much. Yeah, well, these are baby steps. We're just bringing people together. I realized, you know, I didn't want to be retired wealthy all by myself. I wanted to have all my friends retired and wealthy with me, so we could all hang out. So that's our goal here. Anyway, thank you so much. If anybody wants to unmute yourself and say thank you to Adiel, you can, for coming on and talking with us. And we really, really appreciate your time here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Yes, thank you.
It was my pleasure, really. And I really mean it. You guys want to talk?
It's a nice presentation.
Yes,
Thank
thank you.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Appreciate it.